What are brushes and why do we use them? Good question. Well, I like to say that brushes are the softer side of our maniac side of drumstick playing. Brushes are essential to being a total drummer, a total musician. I like to say that whatever you can do with the sticks, you should be able to do with the brushes. And how do we do that? Well, that requires a lot of practice, a lot of practice, practicing those rudiments with the brushes after you do them with the sticks. But also, it requires a lot of listening. And I'm just going to give you a few guys that you can check out um, that I think are essential, that I've listened to growing up. We can start with Papa Joe Jones. We can start with Specs Wright. We can start with, oh, Art Taylor. We could start with Vernell Fournier. We could say Philly Joe Jones, right? I think all of the great masters, Kenny Washington, Lewis Nash, Clayton Cameron, Jeff Hamilton, a lot of people that play great brushes. But the thing that you have to do is find the sound that works for you and go back and listen and really just sit down and listen. One of the records I always recommend to my students is the great Papa Joe Jones trio years, and it's the Evercrest years, right? Evercrest, and a song called Sweet Georgia Brown. In the beginning, he's playing with his hands on the drum, but then he switches to the brushes, and that sound is one of the biggest sounds that you'll ever hear, and it's so wonderful. And so what I did was I just tried to emulate that sound over and over and get as close as I can to it. So I'm not sure. I want to say maybe that was calf heads on the drums at that time. I'm not 100% sure, but calf heads presented a different sound, but they also presented different problems. Calf heads go out of tunes a lot. So, excuse my leg for slipping. So we don't use calf heads as much anymore, but it's a great sound. I tried it a few times on my snare drum, and the sound was great, but I was tuning all night. So the point is, you have to find a drummer or drummers that you like, the sound of their brush playing, and emulate that sound. And that just goes for not just the brushes, but it goes for anything having to do with the instrument. Find someone first and try to emulate the sound that they get. And then after a while, like we say, you always have to forget that. You have to come up with your own version of that or combined versions of all the masters that you've listened to get to your own sound. Brushes are super hard, and brushes are something that we have to play every day, practice every day. And don't be afraid to pull them out on a gig on those super fast tunes. Don't just go to sticks. Say, you know what, I'm going to challenge myself. Don't be afraid to play fours with brushes. Don't be afraid. Like, the only way you're going to learn is to do it. So let's jump into this quick segment of brush playing brought to you by Greg Hutchinson. Peace. Saturday morning brush lesson. It's pretty simple what we're going to do, guys. Playing this pattern, which is going to be the typical brush pattern, the standard brush pattern that you should learn first. So since I go counterclockwise, a la Papa Joe Jones, I divide the drum up like a clock. So at the top, right in front, is 12, and at the bottom is 6. So what I'm going to want to do in time is go from 12 to 6. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's just do it with a brush and see what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my left hand. Now my right hand is playing similar to the ride cymbal pattern, walk the dog. I'm playing that with my right hand, but what I want to do is I want to get kind of like a conga effect. So I don't want to mute the drum like this. I want, right? So here we go. This is 12. Walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can even lighten up on your left hand stroke, which will give you a different sound. Right. So this is lighter. That first stroke was me applying an ample amount of pressure. So it's like one. See how my hand is pushing down? Now I'm going to lighten up on my left hand. Walk the dog, 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 walk the dog. And all the time, I want to keep my right hand kind of staccato in my approach. I'm hitting the drum, but I'm not into the drum. I'm coming off the drum. Walk the dog, walk the dog. So my approach is barely hitting drum when I'm thinking about it. So that's my approach for playing the standard brush pattern. I'm going to show you different strokes and how to give different sounds. That's the first one. Let's take a break for a second. Now let's continue. Notice that there's something that I did. Notice that the snare drum is off. Now, typically I'll play the snare drum off, the snares off, because I don't want this sound. Because that doesn't allow me to get that tom sound. So I'll turn the snares off. Now, you have to learn, if you're going to go from brushes to sticks, how you switch the snare on fast. Because otherwise you're going to waste time, or you're going to make the music suffer. So, but we'll talk about that a little later. Right now, just remember that we said 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. This is something that you have to remember, whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise. 12 and 6 will set you free. 12 and 6. 12 is at the top, right in front of you. 6 is below, right here. So remember that we said walk the dog, right? Walk the dog. Now I start my walk the dog at the top. Walk the dog. So 1, 2, 3. Now, did you see what I just did? I said, walk the dog, I walk the dog. That's what's known as a skip, right? So, right there, that's an accent. So what I like to do is just play time. Don't worry about the skips or the accents. Those things will come. What we want to do first is get a great sound. So I might do this for 15 minutes. Walk the dog, 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 walk the dog. Now you can also do it like this. You don't have to go over. No, that's what I didn't explain to you. I'm going over and back down, but you can stay stationary with your right hand and sound like this. Still concentrating on that 12 and 6, but your right hand is staying on the right side of the drum. Walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog. Now back over. So some people go side to side, right? I learned going in a semicircle. So that 12 to 6 is a semicircle. 12, and back up. Down and back up. Down and back up. You can do this too, side to side. It's not the same to me. It's another stroke. But for the full sound of the drum, I prefer. See how big that sound is? The whole time, you're feathering the bass drum and you're playing the hi-hat on 2 and 4. So let's not forget that. Here we go. Right, so that's essential. That feathering and the hi-hat, that's consistent. That always is something that happens, no matter if we're playing brushes or we're playing sticks. So that's your medium tempo. There's so many different approaches, so many different ways. I was lucky to study with the great Kenny Washington and Marvin Smitty Smith, and I learned these methods from those guys, but also I learned from watching Papa Joe Jones videos. You gotta go watch the videos, guys. Vernel Fournier. Now let's think about Vernel. Vernel played his brushes really small like this, right? Which gave him a very much a rhythmical approach, right? And it's when you hear it, watch. Dawn That Dream. It gives you a different sound. What I usually do when I buy my brushes, they come like this, right? What I do though is I expand them all the way out and I do this to them, which gives me a wider sound, right? So you see what I'm doing? I'm expanding the brush. Now look at that. That's much wider. Now let's push this one all the way out. And they were already expanded, but now I'm going to make them a little wider for you guys, which actually helps to soften up the sound too. Now check it out. Look how wide those brushes are. Woo-wee! See how big that sound is? So that's your, I'd say, medium to up tempo stroke. Now when you're playing faster, you still want to get that same sound, you know. So how do you guys say, how do you play faster? Well, you have to gradually build up to it, right? So start slowly. Work on this sound first. Increase the tempo. Increase the tempo some more. Increase the tempo some more. And slow back down. So what happens is, what you want to try and avoid is the circle's definitely going to get a little smaller in your left hand, but you want to try and still keep that as big as possible, right? Now, the work is really in the right hand. You have to get that snap. So that's important. Sometimes you can just sit there and do like this. Snap, 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 snap. So as you go faster, you're going to see that your muscles start to tension up. The brushes are non-forgiving. So the brushes are something that you have to practice every day to build stamina in your hands, in your wrist. So everyday practicing brushes, I'm not going to give you a time limit on that. Do it as long as you can because it'll help you. Now, that's for the slow to medium strokes, right? Welcome back. Now let's talk about that ballad stroke. You often will be in situations where you play a ballad. And I'm going to talk to you about some things that sometimes a lot of people don't tell you about, but that I realized from playing with the great Betty Carter. When you play a ballad, if you're going to play a ballad and you're playing loud brushes like this, 1, 2, I'll give you 2 different strokes and I'll explain them later. 1, 2, 3. You hear how loud that is? Now imagine a singer trying to sing over that. It's really too loud. So you have to learn to play underneath that because that space right there utilizes the whole vocal range. Like you're like you can do it yourself. You can sing yourself, right? I can't sing, but here you go. I'll give it a chance. A try. Here we go. What's new? How is the world treating you? See how loud that is? Oh my God. As opposed to what's new, right? There's nothing there, right? So how do we split the difference in that? Well, let's check this out. We have the figure 8. Let's try a figure 8. So figure 8 is over, under, right? Now, what I tend to tell guys when I'm teaching them brushes is the hi-hat is playing 2 and 4 already. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't need to go. That's like dancing with a partner and you keep dancing on their shoes or they keep stepping on your shoes. You wouldn't want to do that, right? So don't do that when you play the brushes. So let's go for a nice, even what I like to call waterfall sound. So here we go. Over and under. So let me explain this to you. Figure 8. 1, 2, 3. Over, 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 over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you notice sometimes you will get a little something, you just work on that slowly over time. But you notice what I'm not doing is this, I'm not going. You don't need to do that, right? Smooth. Which brings me to my other point. You have to learn the lyrics to these ballads that you're playing because why? If you just play that same stroke the whole way through, that's actually not really it. You need to understand the lyric and play the lyric. Play what the song is about. If you're playing Skylark and I just do this, Skylark, do dee 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 dee, do dee. Then now I'm giving the brushes some ding, double ding. I'm showing that I'm showing that I know the song. I'm not just playing a pattern just to play a pattern. That has its place, but from playing with so many vocalists, I've learned from playing with Betty Carter, from playing with Diane Reeves, all these great vocalists, that you play the song. You don't just play a pattern. So that was the over and under, right? The figure 8. But here's a stroke that Kenny Washington showed me. And it's pretty great, so check it out. So, 1, 3, 1, 3, 4. Up, 3. Now notice I'm not going, I'm not doing, when I bring the brush down, I want it to be silent. Right? So that's a stroke that he showed me early on, and I used to go watch him play. And Kenny Washington is one of the great brush players of our time. Clayton Cameron, Jeff Hamilton, all these great brush players. So I learned that stroke from him. That stroke is a great stroke, but like I said, if you're playing with a vocalist, you have to understand how to manage that stroke also. So these are some of the things that brush playing will bring out, and it will expose if you really understand what's going on, and you really have to dive deep into getting a really good sound. I just wanted to give you a little heads up, and we'll get some more into this in a later edition of the Hutch brush stroke, excuse me. But this is just a beginning so that you can understand. So the key thing to realize is getting the sound on the head, which means that you have to have a good head also. What I usually like to do is when I get a brand new head, I sandpaper it. Oh my God, dirty. I sandpaper it down so it's smooth because you know new heads are rough. New heads are like this, right? Now here's the difference, right? Listen, that's too much. That's smooth. So you want a smooth head. Generally, you want a coated head. Not to say that you can't do it on a black dot, but the black dot's going to get in the way, so you don't want that. So a coated head is what you need, and some good brushes. So now, what is a good brush? To me, a good brush is a brush that has flexibility. I use this brush. This is the Vic Firth brush, but this is not the Vic Firth white brush, the Dave Weckl edition. No, this is the different. This is the purple brush because it has a little more give. I want my brushes to move. That's important. If your brush doesn't move here, then there's no way you can get a good sound. So, like I said, getting the right brush is super important. And notice what I've done with the end of the brush. I've done that. I've bent the tip. Why do I bend the tip? Because I can do this then when I'm finished with the brush. I can put it right there, and then I can grab it again when I need to play it. So these are all the tips that you learn from playing brushes for years, as I have. Um, if you have any questions, please reply. If there's something I missed and you want to know more about the brushes, let's get to it. Thanks for listening, and happy Saturday, guys. Well, actually, whenever you watch this, happy day, drum day, Hutch style.